Hi, nice to meet you both. I'm Ariana.
Hey, how are you? I'm
Pretty
sorry.
good. It's okay. How are you?
I'm doing well.
Awesome.
Hello.
Hi. So, why did you both want to be a part of the show?
Um, Listen, this was such an important subject, and 50 actually was the person who first approached me about doing a show about this. It was just we say it at the top of the show, the staggering number of murders happening in the community and them being headlines or social media posts that then go away a lot of times without there being any resolution for the families, any answers in terms of, or culpability for those who did it. And we wanted to do a show that, not only did a boots on the ground, investigation into these murders, but really, celebrated the lives of the people behind the stage names, the people behind the headlines. And that was the, original intention and genesis of the show.
Yeah, for me, obviously the show is an investigation into specific instances and specific cases, but it's also an investigation into some a cultural glitch that seems to be costing people their lives. There's a question that we need to ask and a conversation that we need to have about what's happening to young Black men, young Black people all over this country. And anything that gets us closer to having that conversation, I want to be a part of. And this show is one of those things.
Yes. Why do you think people are so obsessed with true crime right now? Documentaries, podcasts, things of that nature.
In my opinion, social media has given people a front row seat to every element of every situation. And, we in the past had read about crimes and not really had the access that we had, web sleuths. Those are folks who have the ability to do their own investigation using the internet and getting information that wouldn't readily be available. So I think it's really about feeding, the voyeurism, the voracious appetite that exists right now with people just wanting to know everything about everything. And that extends itself to, crimes and wanting to be, a part of solving them and having information about them.
Yeah, I think it's always existed. I remember there was a movie when I was a kid called Reversal of Fortune, and it was about, the now disgraced Alan Dershowitz and his when he defended Klaus von Bülow, this big rich guy who was accused of having killed his wife. And I just remember my mother and my aunt like watching that movie and then consuming it in a very specific way because it was a real life case. It was something that really, yeah. So America's relitigating Jeffrey Dahmer now because of the Netflix series, but I went through that when I was a kid. Like people being hung up on that every single day, every single aspect of the trial, then on to OJ. So I just think that
I was about to say OJ was the biggest example for me. Yeah. Of having that evidence, seeing that information, the glove. So again, people are just obsessed with, having their hand.
Sure. So I just think now seeing that people have a lot of free time and a lot of access to this stuff, they just want more of it.
Yes. But the way true crime is covered when it concerns people of color is completely different than when it's white people. It's either just ignored or very victim blaming. But this show doesn't present it in the way. Was that very important and something you guys were conscious of?
Absolutely. It was very, very intentional because one, we wanted to get those answers. We wanted to, hopefully in the best case, uncover a lead and get a piece of information out there that wasn't known prior. But we also wanted to approach this from a very humane standpoint. We wanted to show that these were people, right? Not just headlines, not just celebrities, these were human beings with family members and mothers. And we wanted to show sides of them that their fans and, people had not seen before, because this was both in part an investigation, but also a tribute, in some sense of the lives that they had lived.
Yeah, I think talking about the people, it humanized the show in a way that like I said, I've said this before in other interviews, that I wasn't even prepared for, to have connected so much with every individual story like we did. And I think people are going to come away from the show with a real understanding of what's going on in some of these neighborhoods. And it's something that I don't really even think that we knew was possible when we first set out, but we just got better at storytelling and better at storytelling and better at storytelling. And I think it's very powerful stuff.
Yes. How did you go about building that rapport for people that they were willing to open up in that way that they did?
I will give it all to Van. I mean, there is this, honesty, this sincerity, this empathy that, you will see as you guys watch the episodes. It was such difficult stuff, right? To sit across from mothers. And Van, you had a way of, connecting in such a pure and honest way that nothing that you asked seemed outside of, the scope of what should have been asked in that moment. It was so raw, it was so honest. And I think the families, the people that you spoke to felt that from you and responded to that. So that, watching the show back and watching the footage, we could not have, found a better person to spearhead the show.
I'm not going to compete with that answer. So
no, but it's like, what was, your approach, Van? Was there anything you did mentally to prepare yourself for some of those difficult conversations?
There's nothing you can do to prepare yourself to talking to a mother about her path away, her deceased son. But I do think that there was, I think that people are really going to be surprised how muted some of these family members felt.
Yeah.
How silenced they felt. There's so much talk about the people who they lost, but no one really ever talks to them about it. Like when we were down in New Orleans specifically, when the word got out that we were down there covering Soulja Slim and Magnolia Shorty, my DMs started blowing up with people who had never really gotten to say how much these people meant to them in such a big way. So I think, sitting down and connecting with people was one thing, but these are people that wanted to tell their stories and wanted to tell how they've been feeling. And I was happy to be able to give them a forum to do that,
Yeah, you mentioned that in the first episode that these people have to share their pain with the world. It's not a personal experience that they have, but they also knew these people in a completely different lens than the world knew them as a celebrity. So it is definitely very heartbreaking. I feel like it's also mentioned in the show. And what makes this epidemic even more heartbreaking is I feel like it's usually thought of, oh, people are in a trap house. They were just in these very quote unquote precarious situations when it's not like that at all. They're doing everyday activities in the brightest of light, like in the middle of the day. Was that something also really concerning that you noticed when covering these stories?
Absolutely. One man killed in his mother's front yard. Another man killed buying a motorbike at a motorcycle place, a dealership. Another man killed on the Gold Coast, like the swankiest, richest part of Chicago. Another man killed in broad open daylight on the freeway. Another man killed in one of the nicest areas of the Hollywood Hills. Like, you know what I mean? Like this is like, once I looked at all of these cases, people don't think of it, but like these are places and instances where you wouldn't think that death would find some of these brothers and sisters, but it was happening. It continues to happen. So I think the safety of the young Black male, the safety of the young Black person in whatever position they find themselves in American society, I think people are going to really have a lot of questions about that after looking at the show, after watching the show. So yeah, you're spot on by that. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. Another aspect of the show, obviously, because it's on network TV, but was probably, I'm guessing, a decision on your part as well, is to not show the gruesome videos that do exist of these murders. Was that also a conscious decision?
Absolutely. Absolutely. I mean, that has all been part of, the desensitization that we're experiencing now as people, as human beings. You look at social media and everyone feeling the need to share these gruesome images. And again, these are lives, these are people with family members. So, definitely wanted to tell these stories, but not in a way that, exploited the worst parts of, what these family members had to experience in seeing their loved ones killed.
Yes. What's very obviously crazy today in the elephant of the room is the passing away of Takeoff in such a brutal way in the videos that are being shared. How are you guys both feeling that obviously you made the show because this epidemic, but that it's coming out right after this happened? Because I feel like a lot of times people associate these murders with, but not that their lives aren't valuable, but with kind of like people who are just starting off, or TikTok rappers, not someone who was at the very top of his game and was only going up, and literally released a music video yesterday. Like, how are you guys feeling?
Obviously gutted. It's just, I woke up this morning to the news, and obviously it takes your breath away. But I want people to remember, this is the third rapper that has been killed since we finished principal photography on Hip Hop Homicides. One rapper we actually interviewed, his name was FBG Cash. He is from Chicago. We interviewed him for the FBG Duck episode. He was dead before we finished filming the show. Then you have PNB Rock, who was killed out here in LA some weeks back. And then now you have Takeoff. It's not stopping. It's not stopping. And it's past time that we have a real sober conversation about what the hell is going on. So, at first there was talks about killing all the press today. We talked about it, but we it's irresponsible to do it. We have to have these conversations. We have to talk about this stuff. That's the way I felt. Mona, I'm sure that you felt the same way.
I mean, it's rough all around, but when you talk about a bigger name rapper versus a smaller rapper, a big part of what we, impress in the show is that rappers, Black men, these are lives. These are people who lived lives that are just dying at this alarming rate. And I have to, believe in some sense that we have become so desensitized about this epidemic. This has become so normalized in our community that, as Van said, if we don't talk about this, if we don't shine a light on this, if we don't figure out the solutions of how to stop this, it's just going to continue to happen. And we cannot allow this to become our norm. We cannot allow this to be something that we are so used to having happen to us that it becomes okay.
Yeah, so for me, I think there has to be a holistic approach to it. We have to talk about a lot of the things that are ailing us, and obviously access to firearms, which are essentially killing machines, has to be discussed. However, it's just one aspect of things, right? I don't want to get into a whole back and forth political volley over one issue, because that one issue gets used to minimize or subtract from the larger conversation. Number one, that we need to talk about conflict resolution. We need to talk about de-escalation. We need to talk about some of the messages that we're sending out to one another, and ways that we can like hold hands and really have a full-throated conversation in community about what community is. Obviously, I would feel, I'm a gun owner. You know what I mean? I have a gun here in my home. I'm from Louisiana. I got my first gun when I was 7 years old. It's hard for me to have what I feel like is a secure house without having a weapon in my home. It's just part of my culture. However, at the same time, I understand when something gets to a place of societal dysfunction and not being safe and not being tenable. So I think all of those conversations are a part of it. I don't ever want to make it about one specific issue, because then the opponents of that issue can say, okay, we can stop the conversation now. So I want to have a conversation about Black men, about why they feel so unsafe they have to kill one another, if they are as unsafe as they feel they are, and if we were stronger together, if we would feel safer. Because one thing I'll say, and then a lot of this stuff that even the 50 song, like What Up Gangsta, I listen to that song all the time, right? When 50 says, I walk around like I got an S on my chest. Now it's a fully auto and a vest on my chest. That song is about safety. That song is about, don't try me. I'll hurt you if you try to hurt me. I'm the biggest, baddest, toughest person, which means I'm the safest person in the room. So these brothers feel so unsafe that they want to hurt people to make sure that nobody tries them. And I want to just talk to them about how we can make them feel safer and how we can de-escalate situations where they feel like they have no other choice.
Yes, it's economic safety, everything that has
Absolutely.
just created the situation to fester, and it's beyond tragic. But I want to thank you both for taking the time to speak to me. I really appreciate it. I'm really excited for people to see the show, and I wish you best of luck on your future projects. Hope to talk to you soon.
Thank you so much.
Okay, thank you.